everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Today I want to address some common heard statements in fishing that I consider to be a myth, meaning these statements are not true. So I've got 5 that I want to go over for you because I think oftentimes they are very much misrepresented, and they're oftentimes something that can persuade an angler into doing something that they shouldn't be doing. So I want to talk about each one of these. Before I do get into them though, I want to remind you that if you're looking for some additional content from me, I do members only videos as well as members only live stream on a monthly basis. So if you're looking for more content, check out my members only page. Also, if you want to support the channel in another way, you can use my Tackle Warehouse affiliate link to make your tackle purchases at Tackle Warehouse. All of the money that I make from that comes right back into producing content for you guys to hopefully help you catch more fish. So let's talk about some of these myths, what I consider to be myths. The first one, pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but this is one that we hear all of the time, that big baits catch big fish. Well, big baits do catch big fish, but really, it has more to do with little baits catch big fish, and in fact, I would make the statement that I think little baits catch more big fish. I think oftentimes what you do by using big baits is limit yourself to catching only big bass, but it doesn't mean that you catch more big bass on big baits than you do on little baits. So I would encourage you to continue to use little baits. In fact, I actually think you might catch more big bass on really small baits than you do on any other size bait. But in reality here, what it comes down to is if you want to catch a big bass, you don't have to use a big bait. In fact, you're limiting yourself to only big bass with big baits in a lot of circumstances. It does not mean that you won't catch more big bass on small baits. Just something to keep in mind from that standpoint. Another myth that I hear a lot of times is you can't catch bass during the middle part of the day when it's sunny out with a topwater. That is 100% false. In fact, a lot of times some of the best topwater fishing actually occurs during the middle part of the day when the sun is out. So don't think you have to put it away. What happens a lot of times when the sun does come out is it positions the fish a little bit differently. But you can still very much catch them on a topwater. You just need to alter your location and recognize the fact that the sun you need to use to your advantage to find those areas where a topwater bait is still going to work. But it doesn't mean you can't catch them in the sun. In fact, a lot of times some of the best topwater fishing, especially if you live up north for smallmouth, is during the middle part of the day in the sunniest of conditions. So don't think you have to put away your topwaters as soon as the sun comes out. And that's going to lead me to the third myth, that sunny days are not bad days to fish. Oftentimes what we hear people say is, well, it's sunny out, I'm not going to fish during the middle part of the day because the fish aren't going to bite that well. You have to recognize that the sun positions the fish differently. So maybe if you were catching fish out on a flat during the early hours or late hours of the day, that flat may not be the ideal situation or location for bass during the middle part of the day. But it does not mean that you can't catch fish on those sunny days. In fact, I generally would prefer to fish on a sunny day than a cloudy day because it positions the fish that much better. It puts them into shade lines. It puts them next to close targets. It's one of those things where if you have an overcast day, the fish roam a lot more. So you need to change your bait presentations. If you're fishing in low light conditions or an overcast day, a lot of times your moving baits are better. On sunny days, a lot of times you're talking more about your jigs and Texas rigs. So you just need to recognize that the sun can help you. In fact, it can make fishing way better. So don't avoid the sunny days when you see a perfectly beautiful day coming up on the calendar. I know a lot of people that only like to fish when it's like you've got a storm coming or when you've got cloudy days, but that's not the only time you should be fishing. Another one that I hear all the time is you can't catch fish in muddy water with natural colored baits, meaning you can't catch them on green pumpkin, you can't catch them on browns, you can't catch them on watermelon in muddy water. You have to throw black, you have to throw black and blue. That's 100% false. I feel like the fish oftentimes don't care what color it is. I do think there's something to be said for using dark colored baits or very bright colored baits in muddy water, but I've caught a lot of bass on green pumpkin and watermelon and relatively translucent baits in muddy water. So you still want to experiment. If you're not having luck throwing black and blue in muddy water, try throwing green pumpkin. Maybe it will actually help you. It's something that I think oftentimes people really limit themselves to specific colors on, when it comes to water clarity. So, when it's clear water, they only throw the natural colors and they don't throw black and blue. Well, I can tell you black and blue is a great color in clear water as much as it is in dirty water. So that's something to keep in mind. And that's going to lead me to my fifth myth that I'm going to try to debunk, or fifth thought, I should say. They're not truly myths, but a lot of people would say in muddy water, you shouldn't throw any finesse presentations. Don't use a drop shot. Don't use a shaky head. Don't use a Ned rig. Don't use a small swim bait. I got to tell you, the fish can find your bait in muddy water. And there's a lot of times where in muddy water, just like in clear water, where the fish don't want an aggressive presentation. You still have to finesse them. And generally speaking, the fish are still going to be in those locations. So if you have an area that you feel like is good, and maybe you fish through with a chatterbait or a spinnerbait and you caught one or two, you might want to think about going back through that area with a finesse presentation, regardless of water clarity. A lot of times I can tell you catch more in muddy water on a finesse presentation than you do on some power presentation. I mean, I gotta tell you, when I got back from Lake of the Ozarks on day 3, I caught a fish that had no eyeballs, literally blind in both eyes. It looked like a bird had pecked his eyes out or something. It was an ugly sight, but that fish found my jig in pretty muddy water. So in my opinion, the fish can use their lateral lines more than they use their eyesight. So when you're talking about using certain colored baits, or you're talking about using finesse baits, the fish are able to find that. They still can find it using their lateral lines versus using their actual eyesight. So that's something to keep in mind. It's not all about their vision. It has more to do with them being able to locate your baits. So if you were to ask me in muddy water, a lot of times I prefer to use something that makes more sound, gives off more vibration, regardless of whether it's a finesse presentation or a power presentation, meaning you can add more sound with a drop shot by using a tungsten weight. You can do the same with a shaky head or a Ned rig. Use tungsten versus lead. You'll create more sound, more vibration that helps the fish find your bait. If you want to throw a crankbait with rattles, that'll make more sound, should allow those fish to find your bait. But there are plenty of times the fish in muddy water don't want a big aggressive bait. So the overall theme of this video is go out there, do what gives you confidence. Don't think just because somebody else told you something or you hear over and over again that you can't in fact catch fish doing something. In most instances, you can. You just got to go out and make it work and fish the moment, fish the variables that are in front of you, and you can have a lot of success. So hopefully, guys, this helps you, gives you a little bit of confidence to go out, use maybe some of your favorite baits in areas where you wouldn't normally do it, because it probably does work. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned. We'll have a new video coming out tomorrow for you.